It's good to know that even in her youth, when Deb spirals out, she gives 100%. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The fourth episode of Dexter, Original Sin, is out. It's called Fender Bender, which you'll get that clever title and the purpose at the end of this review in this episode. Overall, I'm enjoying the series. I'm having a blast with the series. If you've seen my note on the last episode, it is important to note that I've sort of been approaching this prequel series as if I or the people who are watching these videos have not seen Dexter New Blood or Dexter, the original series, because I don't want to like ruin anything. If this is your first time in, you're not privy to everything. You're not privy to what actually happened to Harry and Laurie Moser. You're not privy to what happened to Laurie. You don't have all of that information. This episode is probably the first episode out of the four where the hangups that I have about prequels sort of reared its head. Doesn't stop me from enjoying the show, which most of the time most prequel series or prequel movies do. I'm still enjoying what I get here, but there are parts that I'm like, well, why are we here? Why are we doing this? What are we gaining new from this that I need to go through the exercise of watching this play out? And I'll explain exactly what I mean in just a bit. We pick up this episode with the judge's kid being found hung over an overpass. Whomever it is that took the judge, we all are believing it to be associated with the cartel, have hugged Judge's kid Jimmy over the overpass and killed him. He's dead. The team arrives on the scene to canvass and set a perimeter, all that good stuff. And Dex is having a bad response to this. He is not in a good way. It's for the first time he's locking up. He has a thing about death to kids, but it might have something to do with him being in the scenario that he was in, sort of born in the blood when his mother passes. Which I'm going to start giving that away because they blatantly give away the shipping container massacre in this episode. So, spoilers: Laurie doesn't make it. Captain Spencer and LaGuardia sort of have a pissing contest over the scene. LaGuardia is talking to cameras. Spencer pulls her off of that, like, nope, you don't talk to cameras. And then he sends her off to another case. She wants to be the lead on this. He's like, nope, you go deal with something else that happened in, I think it's called Prostitute Park. That's the tail name for it because there was a murder that happened there. You go deal with that. And you take Officer Sanders with you. In this, Harry sees that Dex is not taking this well and not going well with this. So Harry sends Dex off to that crime scene as well, just to get him away from this one. One of the few times that Harry wasn't an enabler and realized what was best for his kids and actually did something about it. Because you'll see as things go along, Harry might be enabler 101. If you want a class in enabling, it's Harry. With both kids. Speaking of which, Deb and Sophia are planning to take the girls to the beach, the rest of the volleyball team. She's gotten the captain seat, so she's won the captain. They voted her in. She's planning to take them all to the beach to have just a good time. But she needs Harry's truck to do so. Unfortunately, Harry left a note on the fridge that says, sorry, I'm taking the truck. And she takes the truck, didn't tell Deb, even though he promised it to her. And she goes into a spiral and starts freaking out. She pivots and says that, hey, girls, we're going to take the bus to the beach. Sort of attract the time and everything. The girls are kind of weary about it. They're not quite feeling it, but they're willing to sort of give that a shot because she is the captain. Then Tiffany, her rival, shows up with a brand new car that she was given. And girls all get into that car with her and leave both Deb and Sophia there to fend for themselves. Sophie's like, well, now what? We're going to get into. And Deb's like, cool, that happened. I got a better idea to get into some stuff. And it involves spiraling out of control. Only as Deb can do. At the scene at Prostitute Park, LaGuardia meets Dex for the very first time. Clocks that he's very young and then allows him to go do his thing. So he sort of canvases the place, comes into his mode. He gives an educated guess about what happened to the body, which doesn't really sit with LaGuerta too hot. She's like, nope, I want actual forensics. Like, the guessing game thing doesn't work for me. Give me something that actually is tangible. There is a very tongue-in-cheek response from Michael C. Hall's inner voice of Dexter that says, it's going to take a very long time for LaGuerta to understand his specific set of skills, which, if you made it all the way through the original series, is very funny. I will leave it there. I won't spoil anything for you, but it is quite funny that he is sort of winking and nodding. This show is very good at sort of taking the piss out of what Dexter has done and does. But because this is set as a prequel, coming through the eyes or viewpoint of Dexter's life flashing before his eyes, he is aware of everything that he has done and everything that sort of has happened. So I am now treating this as if that is how we are supposed to watch this. So it is very tongue-in-cheek, a wink-wink to sort of the first interaction that happens between Dex and LaGuerta. Folks who follow all the way through, you'll know why. There's a cool little moment. Dex and Officer Sanders have connection a couple of times in this scene. One, when they first arrive on the scene, he can tell that Dex is a little skittish about arriving, and he sort of offers a scenario where he had to deal with a kid dying. Then when they are about to move the body, or Sanders asks for the coroner to actually move the body, the coroner is very shaky to do so. He's like, no, I'm not moving that thing. And he refers to it. He's like, I don't want to get sick. Remember, this is the time in the 90s where it was a little unknown how HIV/AIDS sort of spread and how it was sort of known to be mostly associated with gays. This person seemed to be gay, seemed to be of the belief that they were a gay male. And so he doesn't want to move him. But Sanders quickly jumps to it, and Dex decides to help him out. Just to show you a little bit more of a connection they have, and to say that as bad of a person that Dex is as far as violence and murdering people, he doesn't have any proclivities to being a bigot. There's a feather in his hat. Harry goes down to records to see Camilla. And this is where this piece of the world gets sort of spoiled, is that we now as an audience are supposed to just know that Laura doesn't make it. Laura dies. I knew that, but I don't know if the audience of the prequel series, if they're watching this the first time, is just aware of that. But they give that away without it actually happening in the show, which is a choice. But he goes to Camilla and they're like, hey, the records about what happened in that shipping container massacre, can we just triple verify that we didn't leave anything that suggests that Dex was present at the scene? I just want to make sure. He's getting a little skittish. I know he comes down here now. I just want to make sure that those are scrubbed so that I don't get any surprises at the ending. Camilla's like, they don't take care of you. We've made sure, but I will double check and verify for you that Dex's name is nowhere near those records. But it's also to make sure that Dex's name isn't on the records and that his mom wasn't his CI. Which, knowing all that you know about Harry and how his relationship with the CIs and other people outside of his relationship go, you learn more and more that some of the stress that Harry puts on himself, some of the things that happen, and what actually ends up happening to Harry, there's a lot of self-sabotage. As bad as Deb is at spiraling down, she gets it from an honest place. Harry is not the best at coping and dealing either. And clearly from the one shot that we saw of Deb's biological mother, she wasn't either. She was drinking when she got the results. So a lot of self-medicating that occurs with this family. We get our first flashback of this episode. Now, here's where things get a little crazy for me with this show and prequels. It's kind of like if anybody saw Solo. I don't like that movie. For the Star Wars films. Solo is essentially a film that takes the stories, passages, small little throwaway lines that were said in the first episodes 4, 5, and 6, and makes a feature-long film about it. Without really giving any new information or whatnot. It's just saying, hey, these are the things that happened. These are the facts that we know occurred, and now we're going to flesh it out and just film it and show you an actual version of these. That's kind of what I'm getting from these flashbacks. And everything that's happening with Harry. And it sort of pulls me out of the series as a whole, because the best part of this series is sort of watching Dexter piece together what makes him the full-fledged Dexter by the time that we see him at the beginning of the series. The flashbacks here, all with Harry, don't really add anything to me about Harry. I already knew that Harry was an enabler and wasn't the best person to probably be responsible for shepherding and deciding what happens with Dex. All that's still on the table. I already knew his situation with that happened with Laura Moser, and I already knew about her dying in the shipping container and all so on and so forth. So now we're just watching it play out for reasons that this show has yet to tell me. Unless there's a twist or something that's happening in the past that is different than the information that we have already been given in both New Blood and original series, I'm not quite clear why we're doing all of these flashbacks. And so I'm hoping that something comes about, whether it be with Brian or how he approached Brian, or was he going to take both kids in at the last minute? Brian did something. I don't know, but something has to be present that couldn't have been in any of the documents that we learned through the present or through the future, or nothing that Dexter sort of gains. And so, which is going to be hard because if we're doing this through the viewpoint of Dexter, he's not going to know anything in any of that. So that's where this gets a little sketchy. Anyway, we get a flashback of Bobby and Harry going to go pick up Laura at her house to go do the next bit of field work as a CI. She's having a hard time. Brian and Dexter are flipping out, and the babysitter has called off, so she has nobody to watch them. They suggest, like, well, we can't just cancel this meet or reschedule it. That's just not how this works. You have an in. We need to go ahead and use that in. Harry's like, well, can you get one of your neighbors to do it? And she's like, well, nobody's going to watch Brian now because he's a bit of a head case, which is an important factor to know that we've learned as this series goes along and what we get in the original series, that Brian was already had a dark passenger in him. He is a special breed and a special kid, and has a darkness to him. Dex is sort of the sweeter boy of the two. He does not have that yet. So nobody else wants to watch these kids. Harry suggests, all right, well, cool. How about I watch them? You go out with Bobby. You guys can still complete the mission, and I'll stay here and watch them. She's a little hesitant at first because she's so used to having Harry be her direct connect. But she does it. She goes out and does it, and Harry watches the kiddos. Back in present day, Deb and Sophia go to score some coke, weed, whatever drug they can think of from a PT drug dealer who also happens to work at Blockbuster. Yay, old folks. Y'all know how important Blockbuster is to this timeline. Blockbuster was a staple for us, so telling our ages. Dex, to sort of regroup, recalibrate, he returns to basically what is his home camp, as you will. As you see this series goes on, him in the public records place is sort of his home base. He gets his information, that's his bat cave. So he goes to public records to kind of just search and look for a bad person, a person that he can probably get a hold of. That's what he's looking for. Who can be his next quote unquote target? Because anybody who's killing a kid, he needs some sort of release, because if he holds this all in, it's not going to end up well. Once he head home, he talks to Harry and he says, look, I have something else that I want to do. He originally mentions that someone needs to kill the person who killed this kid. Like, if anybody deserves to die, it's the person who killed this kid. And Harry's like, calm down, leave that to us. Leave that to the law, leave that to legal. We will find out who did this and we will handle this accordingly. And Dex says, that's not enough. Dex says, that's not enough. I need to do something to someone now. I have too much pent up stuff happening inside of me. Harry is like, well, hold on. Didn't you just murder something? Like, how often do you need to keep doing these things? He's starting to realize, like, well, this isn't an off switch. And it seems like more after you do one, he's now off the wagon. He can't satiate that itch. He's going to just wants to keep doing this. But Harry's kind of like, well, you just did this. Jesus. Okay. Dex says, like, yeah, I just did this, but if I don't handle it because of this situation, the way I feel right now, something else is going to occur. Harry straight up asks, like, is there somebody you have in mind? And Dex says, don't mind if I do. He pulls out a record that he borrowed from public records for a trained hitman called Mad Dog, played by Joey Pants. Joey Pantaleone is here. Pantaleone. Joey Pants is an old man who's sort of on his twilight year of his assassin run. And so Dex kind of is like, well, this is the person that should be up next. He has over like 200 kills. He's a professional, and he's done this a lot. And Harry's first thought, which is the correct line of thought, it's like, well, if this guy's as trained as you say he is, you shouldn't be the person to kill him. Like, you are a rookie compared to him being a super vet. Harry says, well, okay, if this is who you're going to go after, then you're going to need to get more proof. So Harry's like, go for it, but I need you to come back with more than just this. This is all conjecture. You have nothing to go off of. When they say that, Deb interrupts the two of them sort of talking, and she kind of spirals out on Dad, like, hey, you said you were going to leave me in the truck. You didn't. I'm tired of you two boys having this boys' camp, and I'm never getting in. You guys don't pay me attention. Neither of you say anything about me. Dex forgot to tell Harry that she got the captain spot of the volleyball team. And she's like, well, Jesus, neither of you care about me. And she's just flipping out. She knows off a little bit about the truck, to which Harry's like, well, there's a dead kid hanging from the overpass. I had to take the truck. That causes Deb to freak out even more because she's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? I didn't know that. Deb consistently wants the love and attention from either of the males, but just men in period. This is sort of how she gets into the trouble that she gets into the back of this episode, is that she's always sort of seeking some type of validity, love, and attention from a male source. And it's not just this episode, it's throughout the entire series that is the place. That is the case for her. Once she leaves, the two resume their conversation about Mad Dog, and she's like, look, if Mad Dog is who you say he is, cool, go forth, find information, but just be careful because this could be dangerous. So Dex, in a weird way, tricks Mad Dog to giving him his address and his home address. And so Dex goes to go do his reconnaissance, and he goes to the front house. There's a front house and a back house. The front house, typical homey stuff, grandpa, best grandfather ever. Like, you wouldn't get any sort of signs of an assassin or a hitman. There's a back house that has a bunch of guitars that Dex goes to and look at, and there's a shredder that has a half shredded photo of a person on it. You can't make it out, can't tell who it is, so Dex takes that photo out with the shreddings and then grabs the clippings that are inside the shredder to sort of put them all together. Back in the precinct, the team, Tanya, all of those guys, Bobby, Batista, I think is their Masuka, they are putting together more clues to sort of lead to this is a cartel hit. The finger was cauterized with a cigarette lighter, so that it was burned, hanging. Like, they didn't ask for a ransom; they just wanted to put out a warning shot, a notice that this is what they were going to do. While that happens, while they're talking, Captain Spencer's ex-wife. It's not really clear that they're separated or divorced, but his ex-wife Becca comes in with their son Nicky. You can tell that their relationship is estranged, similarly to Harry's for different reasons. But it's clear that once Captain Spencer became captain, his duties to home sort of stopped. And while he didn't have an affair on Becca, Becca had the affair. His love affair was with the work, and he wasn't as home around. He didn't go to Nicky's school meets or class meets or sporting events or whatnot. Whereas the new guy, Nelson, goes to all of his events. So they start having sort of a battle or a fight in the middle of the precinct. While they're having their fight, Nicky is sitting outside playing his Game Gear of Sonic the Hedgehog. Game Gear, Sonic. That brought up memories for me. That was my time. Dex goes to sort of commiserate and connect with the kid. And kind of offers some candy. There's a sweet moment that happens between the two of them, which leads me to believe that we're probably going to get to a point where, now that he's the recognizable face of this case, the cartel is going to make an example out of Captain Spencer's kid. And Dexter already sort of feeling how the way he does about kids, he's going to feel a way about being a kid that he actually has some type of a connection to. So I feel like the world is going to be in a world of hurt for that kid, Nicky. But I think that's why you establish that kid, put him on the board, have the connection with Dex, to show that the face of this press conference, the person who's saying, I'm going to come after you with guns blazing, they're going to make an example out of him. Dex and Officer Sanders deliver some evidence to LaGuardia. LaGuardia sees sort of the who Dexter truly is, as far as being a really good person with this blood spatter stuff. But he takes two melons, shows him the melons, and saying, hey, I think our victim was killed before they hit the ground. Killed and the life was taken out of them. Their blood stopped circulating before they hit the ground. Because if they hit the ground while they were still kind of blood pumping, blood going, it would have splattered. We would have blood sort of all over the place. What we got was that it was all sort of centralized to one spot, just oozing out the back of the head and not splattering all over the place. That means their heartbeat and their blood had stopped going for quite some time. So whoever our victim or whoever our perpetrator was very intimate with them. They wanted to see the life leave their eyes before they dropped. And that was good work. LaGuerta doesn't so much say good job, Dex, but she kind of was like, well, thank you for that heads up. So the bit of understanding Dex's mannerisms and how everything works and getting that, okay, this kid is good at what he does. We see a quick shot of Deb and Sophia going through Deb's mom's closet to come up with an outfit for going out partying that night. Well, that's happening. Dex is putting the clippings back together and sees that it is for an Omar Reyes, who is a accessory to a money laundering scheme. Not a violent crime or anything like that. Nothing to be killed for. But Dex thought this person was somebody that was already a victim, and it's clear that now this person is going to be a victim because they're to testify in a court hearing the following Tuesday. So Dex now knows there's a clock, and he has to stop Mad Dog before it all happened. As he's quickly trying to get out the precinct, Officer Sampson stops him just to check in on him, see how he's doing. And it is revealed that the young person that died for Sampson was his brother. And this is brought up because Dex asks, hey, my sister and I are in a bit of a fight. I can see you have a brother in your photo. How do you make good on a reconciliation after a big fight? And that's when Sampson comes and tells him, like, I didn't get the chance to. Dex puts two and two together, realizes like that was his brother, and like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to do violent things. I wanted to do crazy things, but I found my way through being an officer. And I hope you find your way to whatever it is you need to do to kind of get through this child murder. He has. It's violent. Deb and Sophia go to a club. Sophia finds a guy and kicks it with him, while Deb ends up in a private area of the club and drinking $300 bottle of champagne that was not hers or purchased by her. A person associated with a local boxer of the area, sees her and goes up to her and starts spitting his game. His name is Gio, and he gives her card and says, give him a call. Harry gets home and has to fend for himself for dinner because Deb's out gallivanting. Dex comes home and gives Harry the update, and Harry gives an analogy that just goes over Dex's head about you're going to be going, like if you were a collegiate basketball player and you wanted to play basketball one-on-one with Michael Jordan, you're in over your head versus somebody you being, 2-3 people in versus somebody who's done this for 200 kills. Dex is like, I don't even know who's Michael Jordan. I have no idea who that is. But Dex is like, I can do this. I'm good. I'm fine. And Harry gives the okay. Got the information he needs. He gives the okay. We then go back to the flashbacks again, which, sure. In the flashbacks, we see that Brian is nuts and is ripping tails off of lizards, just lining them up in a row, doing like 10 of them. He's crazy. He announces to Harry that like Dex is run off. So the moment of panic sets in for Harry because that's how he lost Harry, but he finds Dex in the backyard kind of hugging a lizard that he managed to save from getting the tail ripped off from Brian. But in his saving, he wound up killing it. How Dex got in with Mad Dog is that he basically asked to have a boat charter. Like, you take him out on the road and charter a boat with you. He thought he was going to get that one-on-one, so this is going to be his time to sort of subdue him, take him over into the kill room, basically in the boat. That doesn't happen because when he gets there, Mad Dog is double booked and charter him with a family. That's what it do. He's like, you're not paying me enough. I need you both, so I'm going to charter with them. So there's a group of 3. I think a mom, maybe 4, maybe 2 kids on there, but it's at least 3. A mom, a dad, and their kids. While that is happening, Dex has a one-on-one with Mad Dog to just basically ask if you have any regrets. Mad Dog's analogy for what he does is saying that he is in foreclosures, which is Can pencil it in saying, "Oh, you're an assassin." But essentially, Dex is asking, like, "Did you have any regrets?" And he's pushing kind of hard, not to the point where he triggers or just gives away what he's doing, but it does sort of upset Mad Dog enough to, like, I'm done with this conversation. I don't know what the hell you're asking me about. I got paid money to do what I'm supposed to do, so I foreclosed. That's the end of it. Deb the next day calls Geo up, and he shows up with a fancy car that has a phone in it. This is big time back then. A phone in it, speakers, like it has the whole nine. It's a well-to-do car. Clearly, this guy is in some type of money laundering or cartel business. The telltale that he is not a good person is that Deb calls home to tell Harry, like, "Hey, I'm out with Sophia, uh, and I will come hang up after school." Basically, school is said. Gio immediately clocks it as like school, and she's like, "Yeah, is that going to be a problem?" Knowing that now Deb is underage. This is not college she's talking about, but that doesn't send Gio off. He's like, I'm fine with that. So he's perfectly fine with messing with an underage girl, which would lead me to believe that he's into some other shady things too. Because if that's the legality he doesn't care about, he's definitely not going to care about how else he's getting his money. Harry knows that that's BS. He can hear a man laughing in the background. He's like, "That's Deb. You can try harder on these calls." But that also just goes to show you that the leash he has with both his kids. Some of it might be in guilt that he's got Dex. The leash that he has with both his kids is very long. He allows them both to do whatever they want to. And I'm assuming that he's this much of an enabler because he lost one kid. He's now letting them sort of run rampant on him, and it's going to bite him in the butt. And knowing what I know, one day he's going to see something that he doesn't want to see from one of those kids, and it's going to cause him a lot of pain. We pick up the flashback scenes with Harry finishing up his babysitting duties. He has put both Brian and Dex to sleep. He's actually fallen asleep with Dexter. Laura comes home after a successful CI trip, sees them, and kind of just checks in, like, "How was the day?" She's like, it was good. But on both sides, she says the meet was good. I'm moving up. Estrada knows about me and wants to meet with me. And Harry says that the kids were good. Brian's interesting, but it's like the kids as a whole were good. He's ready to take off. She's like, "You don't have to. You can get a drink." She makes another pass at him. He turns it down. He's like, you can tell he wants to, but he turns it down. He then gets ready to leave. He grabs his keys and she touches him. Now, say what you will. He wanted to do it already. But I think in a situation where you have a man who's not getting the sex that he's having at home is clinical. It's basically for a purpose of, like, we're trying to replace a kid. That was probably the first touch that he had from somebody that he genuinely cared about. And he just succumbed to it, if you will. Harry's a weak man. He's easy to succumb to things. You can see how he's right back on the wagon after a heart attack, back to smoking, drinking, doing everything that he should not be doing. That he just never thinks about what's best for him. Clearly, that's what happens here. But he has an affair with Laura there. And so keep that in your head with you now knowing also that there was a massacre that happened where she dead and then he decided to take her kid. Harry's got some wild things about how he's going about his business and how about his life. Again, for me, as a person who's seen the original series and New Blood, this is not new information to me. We know that Harry had an affair, more than one. I don't know if we're going to get that far into this in this series. So again, these flashbacks have done nothing to give me information that I don't already know, and they're sort of giving you people who have not seen the original series information, but already beating you to the punch that this isn't going to end well for Laura, which you sort of know with Dex being in place. Back in present day, Mad Dog arrives home to hear music playing in his back home. He goes to check it out and gets cracked over the head with a guitar. Dexter starts setting up his kill room, starts tying Mad Dog up, but then he comes to. Again, Dexter has not quite gotten this part where he puts the syringe in to sort of sedate and knock people out. It probably is going to come after the scenario that happens. Here's a problem that happens with also being a prequel. When Mad Dog wakes up, I imagine you're supposed to feel some nervousness or feel some peril. When things like this happened in the original series, we're like, "Oh crap, Dexter tied somebody up, or this person woke up." You felt on the edge of your seat because you didn't know what was going to happen next. because you didn't know if Dexter made it or what was going to take place. Here, I know Dexter's got quite a few years ahead of him. And so whatever's happening in this tussle back and forth, whether Mad Dog's putting plastic from the kill room on top of Dexter or whatnot, means literally nothing. It has no weight at all. In fact, it plays more funny because I know Dexter's going to be fine. That is another problem with doing a prequel series, is that, like, yeah, this should be more intense. You should be like, oh crap, is Dex going to make it out? Now you're kind of like, Dex is going to make it out. Why are we stretching this out so long? But a chase ensues. Mad Dog makes it out into the street. He's running down the street. Dex follows him. Mad Dog turns around for a brief moment to sort of look to see where Dex is. And then he gets hit by a car. Fender bender. And then you hear, when the credits go black, you just hear Dexter say, oh, shit. And that's the episode. Solid episode. Again, you pull the flashbacks out for me, and I don't hate the flashbacks. I think the acting that's happening in the flashbacks is good. I think it's cool to sort of see, I guess, a little bit of the interaction between Laura and Harry, but I don't need it. Like, the sweet spots of this is watching Dexter sort of become the man that we know. But some of the pitfalls of being in a prequel series sort of shine heavy here, between us feeling like Dexter's in peril by messing up his kill, and any of the Laura Harry stuff. I need something, a twist to happen in some of the flashback stuff to make me feel like experiencing that is important for this series. Because outside of that, then I'd just be watching a Dexter prequel series, which I'm perfectly fine with. But this feels like they're making it a Harry and Dexter prequel series. And I feel like I've been given all the information that I need to have on Harry. But yeah, I like the episode. I'm excited to see how it is that Dexter gets out of this fender bender piece. It would be funny if Tiffany was the one driving that car. It all sort of came full circle. But yeah, I think the biggest piece of this is that we introduce Spencer's kid for a reason. I think Spencer's kid is going to get taken off the board in some form or fashion by the cartel. And then they're going to be sort of erasing the clock. And Dexter is going to probably try and jump ahead of the police and then sort of get caught up. Ooh. No, I don't think he's old enough yet, because what happens in Dex's life and Harry's life is that Dex does something that Harry sees, and it sets him down a path. I don't think that happens here, because I feel like they need to age up just a bit, but I feel like Dex is going to try and probably get ahead of whoever is hurting Nikki, Aaron Spencer, Captain Spencer's kid, and in doing so gets sort of caught up himself. But yeah, solid episode, prequel issues, but notwithstanding, not bad. I still have a bit of an issue with the kids aging up a little bit, at least physically. I still think they're going to play them as their correct age, as 3 and however the hell old Brian was at the time, but they don't look like those ages. But what did you guys think about this episode? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.